Felipe and Claudette by Mark Teague. This is a story. These two little gems right here lived in an animal shelter, and they were waiting for new parents to come. Have any of you ever gone to an animal shelter or a place where they rescue animals and try to get a new pet? It's a pretty fun thing to do. Anyway, let's read their story. On adoption day, all the pets at the animal shelter lined up for inspection. "It's time," said Mrs. Barrett, the director. "We need to look our best." One by one, people came and adopted them until there were only two pets that remained. Felipe and Claudette. These two right here. Look how much bigger than they are than the other animals. Seems like it's kind of time for them to get adopted. "Well, what will I do with you two?" fretted Mrs. Barrett. Usually, her pets were all adopted quickly, but not these two. They had been at the shelter for many years. The problem, in Felipe's opinion, was Claudette. See, Felipe's giving Claudette kind of a naughty look, isn't she? Yeah. "We will never be adopted," he told that dog, "because you are constantly barking." "What?" Claudette barked. Bark, bark, bark. Now, to be fair, Claudette did not always bark. Sometimes she would take her toys and tear out all the stuffing, and sometimes she would just run in circles, and sometimes she would bounce against the wall, right against that wall. This drove Felipe crazy. "Please," he said, "I am trying to think." He was trying to think about his future home. Perhaps it would be a beautiful country estate where he might lounge beside a pool, or maybe a penthouse apartment where he would eat sardines from a dainty bowl. Oh, Felipe is having wonderful ideas, and this one, I don't know. There she is thinking about all the different homes Felipe might have. Claudette belched, and the dream faded. "No," said Felipe when she brought him her ball. "I will not play ball with you. You've got spit all over. That ball's been in your mouth. And this cat?" Felipe was a very fussy cat. She did not want to taste that spit. More puppies came to the shelter, and then more kittens. And soon, it was adoption day again. "Time to look your best," cried Mrs. Barrett. Well, they did. And they were all adopted except Felipe and Claudette. "What will I do with you?" worried Mrs. Barrett. Felipe thought she should worry about Claudette. "You will never be adopted," Felipe told the dog, "because you snore even when you're wide awake." "Snork?" snored Claudette. "Snork, snork, snork." She said snore, but Claudette heard snork. Now, to be fair, Claudette did not always snore. Sometimes she would dig holes in the yard, and sometimes she would chase butterflies and moths, and sometimes she liked to dump over the garbage and just roll around in the trash. She drove Felipe mad. It would be difficult for either of them to be adopted when Claudette was such a poor job at making a good impression. So she brought him a toy. "No, I will not play tug of war with you," said Felipe. "Cats do not tug." Oh my. When more kittens came to the shelter, and then when more puppies came, it was adoption day again. Felipe groomed his fur and straightened his whiskers. Felipe wanted to look magnificent, and Claudette wagged her tail. And one by one, all the pets were adopted, all except Felipe and Claudette. Dear, dear, said Mrs. Barrett. What will I do with you two? Oh, it was clear to Felipe and Claudette that Claudette was the problem. You will never be adopted, he said, as long as you have dried dog food sitting right on your nose. Slurp, said Claudette, licking her nose clean. Slurp, slurp, slurp. Now, to be fair, Claudette did not always have dried dog food on her nose. Sometimes she had branches stuck to her collar, and sometimes she had leaves stuck on her paws, and sometimes, if she'd been out rolling in the mud, her whole body would be covered with mud. She drove Felipe crazy. What could Felipe do with a dog like her? Claudette waggled her little tail hopefully. I will not play hide and seek with you, said Felipe. I do not wish to be it. Although, honestly, it is pretty obvious where you are hiding. Do you think Claudette found a good hiding place? I don't know. Kind of easy to see her. Another adoption day came and went, and so did all the puppies, and so did all the kittens. As usual, only Felipe and Claudette remained. Mrs. Barrett was closing up the shelter when a nice gentleman arrived. I wish to adopt a pet, he said. Felipe sat up. Oh, look at Felipe. She's so excited. He is so excited. And Claudette, woo, they were so excited. Well, Mrs. Barrett said Felipe is very quiet. We also have this one, but it's a little bit grumpy. The dog, said the man. Well, Charlotte barks and chews and digs holes in the yard. Anything else? Sometimes she runs in circles and rolls in garbage and snores, even if she's wide awake. Oh, fine, said the gentleman. I'll take her. And he did. Felipe was stunned. Who in their right mind would adopt Charlotte? Claudette. You miss her, don't you, said Mrs. Barrett. Certainly not, thought Felipe, and he waited for the next adoption day, and he waited and waited. Time passed slowly. The animal shelter seemed very quiet. He stared at Claudette's toys and her ball and her empty bowl. I'm sure she's fine, said Mrs. Barrett, and Felipe just sighed. Adoption day came, and all the puppies went, and so did all the kittens. Felipe just hid in the back room. After a while, Mrs. Barrett joined him. She was closing the shelter when the gentleman returned with Claudette. I'm bringing her back, he said. She is not the dog I thought she was. She doesn't play or chew or run in circles, and she doesn't even bark. All she does is mope. Oh, she was sad. As soon as he left, Claudette began to bark. She licked Mrs. Barrett and chased Felipe around the room. What will I do with you two, said Mrs. Barrett, but really it was obvious. So Mrs. Barrett adopted them, and for dinner, she fed them sardines in tiny bowls. Afterward, they all played hide and seek. And you know what? Felipe was happy to play it because they were all together. Oh, everybody's happy. And that's the story of Claudette and Felipe finally getting adopted. Love you. Bye-bye.